No doubt we have all experienced some level of Michael Scott from The Office trying to communicate and us sitting there thinking, wah, 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 what is going on? Today, we are going to dive into 3 keys to communicating well as a leader. Let's go. Welcome to the Leadwell podcast, where we give mission-driven leaders principled and practical advice so they can do just that, lead well. And today we are hitting principled and practical right on the head. We are talking about communication, which is a key principle of leadership that we have to be communicating and we want to do it well. And we're going to go through 3 key practices and ways that we can communicate well as a leader. So let me tell you about my Michael Scott experience. We're there. It is an organizational leadership retreat, the kind where everybody is giving their next year's plan and strategy. So imagine 100 of us in a room, and there's some key leaders that are up there, right? Key executives. And this one gentleman gets up there, and he starts to talk about his 3-legged stool. But this 3-legged stool actually had 4 legs. And all that it was essentially repeating all of the programs and the services that we have been doing with no clear direction and a lot of garbly goop organizational mumbo jumbo, where you left there thinking, I either know less about what I'm supposed to do and where we're supposed to go than I came in, or I am completely out in left field and everybody else understood what was going on. Turns out that everybody thought the same thing, and it was unfortunate because we were not effective. We didn't know what to do, and that leader didn't make it through the rest of that next year. And we need, as leaders, we need to be able to be clear and to communicate well and effective and not just get lost in the organizational mumbo jumbo. So let's dive into that today. 3 keys to communicating well as a leader. But before we jump into those 3 keys, I want to talk about 2 things that really precede that. For us to communicate well, first, we need to listen well. That's right. If we're going to go out there and communicate, whether it's an organizational strategy, just like we saw in that person, they missed it. And they missed it because the first thing was they didn't listen. They didn't take the time to listen to the people that were doing the work. They didn't take the time to listen to what the data and the reporting and the industry trends, the market was telling them. So listen, be present, and suspend that assessment and that judgment, whatever it is, but just listen. When we take time to slow our response, we're actually going to build connection and understanding with the people and with the information. So before we step out to share, make sure that we listen well. And the second one is seek to understand. We can listen it, but if we can listen to it, but if we don't understand it, we're not going to be able to communicate well on the back end. So seek to understand. The best way to do that is to engage in a conversation with absolute curiosity, childlike wonder. You know, kids that are asking questions, those 3 to 5 to 10-year-olds that are just asking, why? Tell me more about that. How come this works out that way? If we as leaders engage with our curiosity, we are going to unlock understanding our people, the market, and what is the best strategy for us to go forward, and really what needs to be said. So before we ever turn it around and start to share, we need to listen, slowing our response to build that connection, and then seeking to understand by being curious. Curiosity is the key that will unlock understanding. Now, if we are armed with those things, one, we're not going to show up like Michael Scott or like this individual and just wah, 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 wah. But let's make sure that we are abundantly clear and communicate well so that we can drive action, so that we can influence the attitudes, the thoughts, and the behaviors that we need to be able to achieve the goals that we have. The 3 keys to communicating well as a leader are make it clear, make it concise, make it compelling. Let's break those down real quickly. Number 1, make it clear. Ask yourself, what do I want them to do, or what do they need to know? If that question can be answered clearly, we can turn it around and share it clearly. We know it is clear when the message is understood. That's what we're trying to get across. So it should be clear to them, not necessarily clear to you. Make it clear and make sure what is most important is most clear. One of the ways that you make sure that it is clear is you say it more than one time. Repeat it, which really leads into our second one, because number 2 is make it concise. And if it's going to be concise, we're going to have to say it a lot more consistently and a lot more frequently, which means we get to repeat what's most important. That helps clarify it. So what question can we ask ourselves to help us make it more concise? How can I say the same thing in fewer words? How can I say the same message in fewer words, whether it's an email, a speech, whether we're going out and giving a presentation? What are the critical needed pieces of information? In the age of too long didn't read, TDLR, we have to make sure that it is concise. And as I said, coming into this, that means that we do say it more consistently, more frequently. When it is clear and it is concise, it can be acted upon. And that's what we want. Communication should lead to an action for any of us. So make it clear, make it concise, and then help it be actionable. Make it compelling. And that's the third key to communicating well as a leader. Make it compelling. It means that it should inspire us to act. That's what communication should do, is it should move us to act. And we as leaders want to move folks to act on the goals, what we are trying to achieve. So make it compelling so that we can inspire action. Ask yourself this question: why does this matter? If you're communicating with someone in payroll, whether it's strategic plan or just the priorities that we have for today, for this shift, why does this message matter? When we can connect why it matters to what we're doing and what goals we have, not only can we motivate, but we can inspire. Folks will be driven to act and to do it. It also keeps us engaged. When it matters to us, it keeps me engaged. When it is clear, when it is concise, and when it is compelling, it is what each of us need to hear so that it's understood, so that it is simple, and so that I am inspired to do the work. Hit home the compelling piece by using compelling language like because, so that, the reason why. When we do that, we help not only connect the dots and communicate what's needed, but it also becomes a teaching component for us as leaders to teach through some of the thinking and the decision making and why we do work the way that we do and how that we do and why that we do. It's just fuel on top of the fire. So 3 ways to communicate well as a leader is to make it clear, make it concise, make it compelling. When you do that, we connect with people at a deeper level, and we will connect people with information at a deeper level. And that is, in fact, the foundation of communicating well, is connection. Connection with people that leads to connection with information and shared ideas so that we can have shared action. So, listen, seek to understand, and apply those 3 keys. Make it clear, make it concise, make it compelling, so that you can compel and drive the action that is most needed inside of your organization. All right. We love to be a podcast that answers your questions. So if you have a question, just like we're going to answer here in just a second, please send it in so that maybe you can be on the next episode. We would love to get your questions. Send it to podcast@leadwell.com, or leave me a voicemail or send me a text at 832-895-1253. All right, Matthew, what question do we have today?
This is right there with our topic for today. What are some ways to communicate an organization's core values well?
Wow, fits with 3 ways to communicate well as a leader. How do I communicate organizational core values well? Core values, like those principles, those beliefs, the ideals that we have, the values that we hold to, are first and foremost best lived out. before they are ever put up on the wall or put into our hiring packet or part of our onboarding training, they need to be lived out. So as a leader, living those out, teaching and talking through those, making sure I can do everything that I can, that these show up in our meetings, that they show up in our hallway, that they show up in how we think, but living them out, whether it's you individually as a leader or continuing to communicate that, making sure that it is there. Because why do we do that first? And why is that so critical for communicating organizational values well? Because as soon as we turn around and put it in print, put it on the wall, put it in the presentation, but it's not lived out, we're going to take it as hypocrisy. Every single one of us will say, oh, that's what they say, but this is what they do. And that's not what we want, because it's going to negatively impact how those core values show up. We're going to write it off just like every other place that has integrity, excellence, accountability on the wall, and they don't do any of those things. So first and foremost is get it to be lived out. And maybe even reflect on with your leadership team, just bring them together and what are our core values, and look at, if you don't have them or you don't think they're clear, look at what is going on. So once they're lived out, right, and you know these are the things that we will hire for, that we will fire for, that we will go to bat for, that if it push comes to shove, we're sticking with this value, not with profit or opportunity or whatever it might be. When they are that core and ingrained, then flip it and start sharing it, posting it, putting it everywhere, putting it up on the wall, putting it and making it a part of your hiring and your onboarding, questions in those interviews, and also teaching to it once folks start to come in. Hey, these are really what we believe and how we operate. And we believe it so much that you got hired because you aligned with them, and we exit people from this organization who don't. Bringing it into weekly staff team meetings and starting off with a core value, talking through decisions and why we made decisions we do because of these core values, sharing stories about how this core value played out in the history of our organization, rewarding and recognizing and celebrating core values with those little awards. All of these are great ways to do it. But the key is, how do we communicate organizational core values well? First and foremost, get really clear on them and live them out. And when you do, then turn around and start posting and sharing and communicating everywhere you can, and tying back those values to what you do, why you do it, how you do it, so that we can all internalize it and start to live those out together. That's a great question. Hope that helps. Can't wait to see how you do that. If you post it on social media, we will repost, we will engage. We would love to know, how are you exemplifying, sharing, posting core values at your organization, and how is it working well for you? Look forward to seeing all of those. And you know what? If you're going to be on social media and sharing, we would love it if you would share this show. Subscribe, leave a review, or push that little share button wherever you are getting this show, because it really helps us get in front of other leaders so that they can get it and hopefully lead well in their life and where they lead. My friends, thank you for being here. Go out, communicate well, and as always, be well, lead on, and God bless.